Welcome to the Faith is Not Blind podcast. I'm Marie Hafen. Today we're in Sweden, and I'd like to welcome Felix Salin.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate your being here with us today.
Thank you. It feels good to be here.
You and I have talked a little bit about your early life, about what happened with going on your mission, health issues that came up, and more recently that you've also had to work through the challenge of having friends leave the church. So let's back up a little bit and go back to how did your testimony develop in the first place in your family so that you had the desire to go on the mission?
Well, growing up, so I was born and raised here in Gothenburg with my family, with my parents, mom and dad, and my two younger siblings, a younger sister and younger brother. And a great home. We learned the gospel, and of course we weren't perfect in everything.
That was perfect.
Yeah, exactly. But we had the missionaries over a lot. When I look back, I remember having the missionaries for dinner, and they brought their friends and who were being taught there, and I often heard my dad talk about his mission, and with the happiness and enthusiasm, and that created a desire for me that I wanted to serve one day as well. My mom, she's a convert. She was baptized when she was 22. And then, of course, when the missionaries were there for dinner, we would often hear that conversion story as well. That helped me to see how to develop a testimony and the importance of prayer, especially. And laid I feel that really laid a foundation for me with prayer. I remember probably one of my first spiritual experiences was when we were at my grandparents' house, and one of those classic experiences when you lose a toy or you lose something, and my mom suggested that we could pray. So that's what we did. And I found it, of course, and that's where it all started.
From there.
Yeah.
No big explosions during your teenage years.
No.
That was not.
Very simple.
Okay. Tell us then what happened as you got a little older and were looking toward the time when you'd go on your mission.
Mm-hmm. So when I was 16, I got a chronic autoimmune disease called ulcerative colitis. It's in the intestines.
In the
and that was hard. It was really hard, just looking at the health situation, and then the social and the spiritual. In a lot of ways, it was very hard. I got a lot of medication at first because it was bleeding, and I lost blood. But then, after a while, they decided that I had to have some surgeries. So at first they removed the colon, and then later on they had to remove the rectum as well. And then I missed out on about 6 months of high school. So I had to go one extra year in high school as well. But that was really tough. All of a sudden, the gospel came alive in some senses.
So in the middle of this great difficulty, the gospel, what happened to make it come alive for you?
Well, in this, and I think we all come in different situations when we ask, why? Why is this happening to me? Why? And that's what happened. And I didn't get the answer at first, but it came later on. But just in many different ways, like being alone at the hospital, that taught me how to pray. It taught me to really study the scriptures, finding comfort in the scriptures in a way that I hadn't seen before. And I could see how fasting worked, how it was really working. Not being out without water and food for a while, but really see the power that comes from fasting. Seeing how priesthood blessings, how they work. So one step at a time, I could see how it all came alive. It was not just nice words, it wasn't just, but it was real. And that's amazing.
Yeah, that's different from talking about it.
Yeah. And of course, in the middle of this, my desire to serve a mission was still there, and I couldn't serve a full-time mission at first.
Just your health just wouldn't have supported it.
Yeah, and that was tough. I was devastated, and that's when it was such a push on missionary work as well. They lowered the age. They had this hastening the work of salvation devotional and or broadcast, and you saw one friend after another who went out
going on a mission.
Yeah, and that was hard, and in some senses I felt forgotten in church. You know, when they talk about going on a mission, and sometimes I sat there on the bench and just feeling, what about those who want to?
Who do desire.
Yeah, but who aren't able to. What about me?
Yeah.
Where's my place in all this? What should I do? So I felt my plan was just broken into pieces.
So how did you keep from being bitter?
I think I was bitter in some ways. I didn't always show it. I don't know if I was bitter, but I was sad. And I looked for other opportunities to help out. I helped the missionaries.
Was this just your own feeling, or did you talk to people and they made suggestions? How did you?
It was a little bit of both. The bishopric called me to be an assistant ward mission leader, which helped at the time. And the stake president gave some support as well, and looking for different possibilities instead of a full-time mission as well.
Was your health improving during this period?
Yeah, at first it was getting better, and I was preparing again to go out on a mission, filling in the papers. And then I was actually visiting the doctor before the appointment you need to do, and that's when they noticed that it wasn't good, that it was worse again. So then I had to go back into the hospital, and I had another surgery.
So add to the challenge.
Yeah, and then the questions came again. Why?
Why?
When I've been doing all of this, when I've been trying my best and not giving up, why is it coming back? But I remember I at one point I read a talk from then President Nuchtdorf, I think, which is called Continuing Patience, where I learned that I can't just sit and wait. I need to do something. So that's what I strive to do. I strive to look for opportunities, and I email my friends who are on their missions, and I don't know, just not stay where I was or how I was, but really seek or look at the opportunities instead of the everything else that was holding me back.
So looking for ways to move ahead
Mhm.
and not just staying in the same.
Yeah, exactly. But then after a while, I was able to go on a mission.
So your health improved enough that
Mhm.
it was.
And it took a while. And then I served my mission here in Sweden.
In Sweden.
And I often get that question: how was it to serve in your own
right
country? And it's such a blessing that I was able to serve. And that's something that I told the missionaries that I met on my mission as well, that don't take it for granted. You never know. But never take it for granted. So yeah.
What a difficulty. Then, how long ago was it that you served your mission?
It was 2014, so 5
years
ago. And then I got back in January 2016.
So what's been happening in the last 3 years? Has everything been smooth sailing since then? Because
No.
you had difficulties earlier?
No. I guess it's been easier, maybe, if you compare it to then. But I got back from my mission, and I started studying to become a teacher at first. Because I noticed on my mission that I love teaching. But then it changed. Then I just got the thought that you're not supposed to do this. Which I questioned, of course. But then after a while of praying and fasting, I felt that I should do something else. And then after a while, I felt that I needed to study media and communication instead, which I'm doing right now, and I've been doing for 2 years.
Well, you would have been testing your spiritual sensors during all this time. I mean, you would know what it feels like to feel the Spirit. You would know what it's like to have a connection with Heavenly Father in prayer and in fasting. So you would be able to trust those spiritual.
Exactly. And I, especially when I was sick, I learned that, or my testimony, that there is a God who loves each and every one of us, that became real. That became very real. And that He cares about my life. He cares about what I think. He cares about the small things. And that's been following along.
Since then.
Yeah. That no matter what, that will always be there. He will always be there loving me. And that's maybe easier said than done.
Well, so many never get to feel that. You never know.
But that's something that I could rely on and fall back on. And especially in a situation like that, when you need to change or so on. So right now I'm studying that, and I'm in Jönköping.
And feeling good about your choice.
Yeah, it feels great. It feels really great. But of course it's been being there, living there. It's not as many YSAs there, and it's, I have some friends who aren't active there anymore, and that's been strange at first, going back there to a place where I've been visiting many times to visit those friends, and then they aren't there. in church.
Yeah, that brings up another topic that's difficult.
Mm.
So how do you deal with that situation if you have a friend who has gone inactive? Because you know about Heavenly Father's feeling for you, how do you deal with that when it's a good friend and you love them?
Mm. I think it's really hard, to be honest. I think it's when I got back from my mission. So my sister, she wasn't active, or she wasn't coming to church before I went on my mission for a couple of years. And then when I got back home, my younger brother, he didn't go either. And that was tough. That was especially coming back from your mission, and you want to talk about the experiences and everything. And
yes.
And they
and your
don't
younger
want
brother and sister who've always looked up to you.
Mm. So that was really tough, and especially finding the balance of that it's their choice.
Yes.
And respecting their agency.
Yes.
That's something that I had to learn, and that I'm still trying to learn. Because I'm not.
It'd
done
be so much
with
easier to say, "Don't you know what you're doing?"
Yeah, exactly. And but at some point, I just felt that, I was really struggling with especially one thing, and that was that I knew that I still loved them, whether they would go to church or not.
Uh-huh.
But how do I live so that they know that I love
that
them?
you still love them.
Yeah, and that's a small but a big difference.
Yes, yes.
And I know that especially at the beginning, I was, you can make small comments on different things, how they were living or not living. But after a while, I understood that I can't do that. I need to keep that for myself, and what I need to do is to help them know that I love them.
And how have you done that? What specifically, can you think of any examples or things you specifically have tried to do?
Just supporting them in their choices, I guess. And I've been trying to call or text every now and then to stay in contact, even though we live in different places, and just remind them that I love them. Trying to get to know them, because I felt that was hard as well. That we kind of we weren't as close.
What kinds of things have you done? What have you tried to do?
So maybe go. So for example, as a birthday gift, we went on a sibling date. Going to a restaurant and then to the movies. So really just trying to get to know each other and focusing on other things you have in common.
Okay, again, it's the relationship.
Mm.
You've talked about your relationships with your siblings, but earlier, what became really important was your relationship with Heavenly Father.
Mm. And
that is such a solid piece in your testimony.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one concluding question.
Mm.
I wish we had more time to talk, and it maybe has two parts. The first part would be, do you have any advice or counsel for someone who loves someone who is in a health crisis like you were?
Mm.
When you talked about the struggles, about why me?
Yeah.
So how would you advise someone who has a loved one who is in that kind of a struggle?
Mm-hmm. I think I would say something that was hard for me was hearing from a lot of people, it's going to be okay. Oh. It's going to be okay.
And you're in the middle of all this pain.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that they wanted me to feel well and so on. They just didn't mean anything bad with it. But that was hard, hearing that over and over and over again. And just not be afraid to ask questions. Ask direct questions on how they feel instead of ignoring them. Because that's something I felt in church as well, that people were afraid of talking, so they just
not.
Yeah. So just go up to them and give them a hug. And just those small and simple things, just showing that you care, and that just say that I don't know how you understand, but I can imagine, because that's something that we hear sometimes as well. I understand how. And
they they don't.
Yeah, exactly. So just showing your support.
And okay to ask questions.
Yeah, don't be afraid of asking questions and direct questions.
Yeah, and I like the hug part too. That's good.
Because sometimes you don't have to say anything. You can just show that you're there, that you're aware of his or her situation.
Yes.
And that's enough.
Okay. And the second part to the question, thank you for that. Because it applies to what if you have friends or you have family who have chosen to not be active. So what advice would you have? And we've talked about that a little bit, but would you add anything to that for the person who is trying to help or trying to love the person who is struggling? And you've mentioned a couple of things. I just wonder if you'd add anything to that.
Well, I can only say what I feel, what I try to do, and something that I felt is that my goal is not to get that person to church.
Okay.
My goal is now that I want them to feel loved, and I want them to know that they are being loved no matter what. Okay,
I appreciate that. Somebody mentioned earlier in a similar situation, but it was after we had one of these discussions. And what he said was that someone had been asking about a family member, what do I do to help? What do I do to help? And the answer they got back was, just love them. It's my job as their father to work with them, to help them come back. Don't take my job away from me. But thank you so much for your insights. And what I heard several times during the time you've been speaking is it's the small things, doing the simple things. But those small and simple things add up to things that are much bigger and grander and more marvelous.
Yeah, definitely.
Just one after the other, after the other. So I just want to thank you again for your willingness to come and share.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you.